Alright, now our next step is going to be to set up and animate our camera. Now I highly recommend that when you're making cinematics on your own, you get to this step as soon as you possibly can, because once you have the camera's movement established, you can animate the rest of your scene so that everything coincides with what the camera's doing, and you don't end up animating things that the camera's not looking at anyway. So the first thing we need is a camera. We can't just use our viewport, and we're not going to be allowed to just use the player's perspective and move the player around. So let's open up our content browser, and then I'm going to jump over to the actor classes browser, and you'll see a camera actor listed up here at the topmost level. Let's close out the browser. I'm going to right-click here on the ground and choose Add Camera Actor here. So if we deselect and have a look, this is our camera actor. It looks like a camera, though right now it's completely in silhouette because it's unlit. Now, we can position this camera using the translation widget. We can rotate it and point it at stuff if we wanted to. But you're quickly going to find that manipulating a camera in this fashion is highly counterintuitive. What we're going to do instead is make use of Lock Selected Actors to Camera, which is a special mode of your viewport. Now, the button for this is located in every viewport's toolbar. You're going to be using it in perspective. So let's go ahead and click on this, and then click on the camera. What that does is that jumps your perspective's view to exactly what the camera sees. But that's not all. The cool thing is that now, as we move the camera around, as we rotate our view around, I should say, the camera is coming along for the ride. So if I frame us up right here on the robot, get some kind of a cool angle of him, maybe something like so. If we just simply jump out of the view, so we deselect Lock Selected Actors to Camera, and now pull back, check it out. The camera is now looking right at the robot. So we can use this as a way to very easily and interactively position cameras. So what I'm going to do is fly over here, and I'm going to aim the camera kind of roughly at this switch, like so. Just kind of keep that switch there dead center of the view, and the camera over here by the stairs. Now let me jump out of Lock Selected Actors to Camera, and you can see where he's positioned in 3D space. So right over the stairway, staring right at the switch. All right, so now it's time for us to begin animating the camera. So I'm going to pop open Kismet, and it's time for us to create our first matinee sequence. So we'll right-click, choose New Matinee, and let's zoom in here. I'm going to double-click this new sequence object, and we see Unreal Matinee. Now, Matinee has several different controls, an interesting user interface, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold back on actually covering this interface. This interface is covered in the videos over moving objects with Matinee, so if you're really interested in all of the buttons and knobs and whatnot and you're totally new to this, you may want to take just a moment and flip over there to that section. At least that way we're not repeating ourselves too heavily. Okay, so we've still got our camera selected, and you'll probably want to verify that in your viewport. I want you to right-click in your track group list. Now that's the dark bar here on the left-hand side. And I want you to create a new camera group. Not an empty group, but a camera group. Now camera group requires a name first thing, so we'll call this Action Cam. Click OK, and it comes in by default with a movement track and an FOV angle track to handle zooming the camera, which is fantastic. And so using this, we're going to go ahead and animate our camera. Now to make this easier, I'm going to do a few things. One, I'm going to demaximize the perspective view. Next, I'm going to adjust my viewport configuration just a little bit so that I can have a smaller matinee window here on the right, and I can still use the viewport over here on the left. Now, it would be most useful if while we are animating, we could actually see what the camera saw, which we can do. If we take a look at the Action Cam group over here in Matinee, there's a little tiny camcorder button, and if I click on that, we're now looking through the eyes of this camera, which is pretty nice. Now, obviously, we're zoomed back pretty far away from that switch, so the very first thing I'd like to do is zoom us in. And to do that, we need to place a keyframe on our FOV angle, which is currently unanimated. There's no keys on it whatsoever. Now, the animation workflow inside of Matinee is you place a keyframe first, and then you adjust the value of that keyframe. So the first thing I'm going to do is, here with my FOV angle track selected, I'm going to press Enter, and you can see that drops a keyframe, little orange triangle there. I'm going to right-click on it and set its value down to 45 degrees, and that will effectively zoom the camera in. Now at this point, we're expecting there to be a player here as well. In fact, we could probably go just a little bit further in. Let's try setting that to 35 and just see what we get. That might be just a little bit better. So the player is going to be standing roughly here. We're just kind of using this switch to help us out a little bit. And we can click on our first movement key and just kind of make a little bit of a minor tweak there. Now, let's go ahead and start handling our animation. Now, I am going to be animating zoom and motion at the same time. And the only reason I'm doing that is because really that's how you're generally going to be working a camera. You're not just going to make one big pass for all your motion and then another pass for your zoom. Go ahead and animate them both at the same time, and then if you need to make tweaks, you can do all that when you're finished. So we've got our first keys laid down. Now, a couple of things will make your life a little easier if you set them up at the outset. In the main toolbar of the Matinee window, take your snap setting, your snap size, and pull that down to 0.05 from the drop-down. Also, make sure that toggle snap is activated. That'll make it a lot easier to follow along with the keys that I'm going to be placing. Now, we're going to slide the time slider forward to about 0.5 seconds. So right here at half a second, I'm going to go ahead and press Enter. Now at this point, I want to be looking up at the light. So I'm going to rotate the camera. Actually, I'm sorry. That's my mistake. I don't want to be looking at the camera right now. I don't want to be looking at the light right now. Excuse me. In fact, what I'm going to do is delete that key, because what I want to do is actually look up at the light bulb at 1 second, and here all I want to do is pull back my zoom. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and jump down to FOV angle, and I'll drop down a key and right-click, and we'll set the value here back to 90 degrees. Now I'm going to jump forward to 1 second, and now we'll switch to the movement track and press Enter. Remember, you got to put that keyframe down first and then make your adjustment. And now we're going to look up at the light, but obviously we're pretty far away. So it would be nice if we could zoom back in on that light bulb. So we'll jump back down to FOV angle, drop a key here as well. Let's right-click and set our value. Let's see what 45 looks like. That's pretty good, but I am going to jump back up one more key to my movement key, so I'm just clicking on that, and we'll center that up. This is another reason why it's good to animate both of these at the same time. Sometimes you can't really tell exactly what you're zoomed in on until you actually zoom in and have a look. Okay, so now we've shifted the perspective from the switch over to the light. Let's stop and hit play and just see what we've got. Very cool. So, kind of straightforward at this point. We zoom back, we look at the light. Now, I want to hold on the light while it kind of flickers to life. So we're not really going to do anything for a full second. I'm going to bring my time slider all the way here to 2 seconds. Press Enter on the movement track. Select the FOV angle. Press Enter there too. So it's just maintaining that value over a full second. Now once that second is over, we got some stuff to do. I'm going to switch up to 3 seconds. So over a 1 second shift, we're going to turn and look at the door. So let's go to the movement track. Press Enter. And now I'm just going to rotate the camera to look at the door. But we're a little bit zoomed up. That's a little further than I want to see the door. I'd like to zoom back, just like we did when we shifted from the light switch up here to the light bulb. So I'm going to track back to around 2.5. Press Enter here on the FOV angle track. Right-click on the new keyframe that appears, and we'll set the value back up to 90 degrees. So all we've done is we've started at the switch, zoomed out, turned and looked at the light, zoomed back in, we hold for 1 second, zoom back out, and now we're staring at the door. Okay, things are going well so far. Let's move forward on our timeline. I'm also going to give us a little more time here. In fact, my animation's 8 seconds long, so let's go ahead and drag this out to 8 seconds. Though, if you're working on your own animations, don't be surprised if you don't really know exactly how long your animation is going to be and you find yourself kind of setting this way out to the side. Though, if you've been doing, storyboarding and really planning out your animation and maybe even kind of working with a stopwatch to get an idea of when the camera is going to shift and do each thing, you'll probably have a good idea of how long it's going to be. So, planning goes a long way toward making this whole process a lot easier. Now, between 3 seconds and 3:45, I want to fly over to the door. So we're going to select the movement track, and here at 3:451, I'll press enter, and of course we're going to snap over to 3:45 because of our snaps. And I'm just going to navigate our camera so that it's here in the doorway, like so. And of course you can test that out. Now, from 3:45 up to 4 seconds, I want to turn and look at the robots. Let's come up here to 4 seconds, press enter, and we'll turn. And I'll try to center this up as best I can, but we really kind of need to zoom in to get an idea of where he is. So just kind of rotate him around. It looks pretty good, though I'm probably off by quite a bit. Now, we want to zoom at the same time. So here, still at 4 seconds, I'm going to jump down to my FOV angle, press enter to place a key. Let's right click, and I'm going to set the value. It's probably pretty low. Let me try 20. And even 20 is kind of far away, but it allows us to kind of angle our camera better than it was. So actually I need to jump back to my keyframe up here on movement and adjust it accordingly. And then we can come down here to FOV angle and just continue to edit till we get what we want. So let's grab the value. I'll pull that down to 5. And that might be actually a little bit too close. And the controls get really sensitive at this point. So let's pull that back just a little bit. Let's try a value of about 8. I think that'll look nice. So there we are. Now let's pull back and just test this. So we get to the door, we zoom out. Now that turn and zoom feels a little weird to me. It would be nice if we kind of turned and were already looking pretty much right at the robot by the time the zoom really got a chance to take effect. And part of that is because when we get here, we're already zooming, you see? We never put down a keyframe to hold our zoom factor after we zoomed out, so we need to take care of that next. So if we take a look down here in FOV angle, we're zoomed in, and let's just double check our value. Currently we're zoomed into a value of 45. And then we zoom out to a value of 90. We need to hold this value. So we could just come over here to 345, jump down to FOV angle, and press enter. Now let's right click, set the value, and you see it's already interpolating. It was on its way down to its low next key. So let's pull this to 90 degrees again. And now that should solve the problem. So we turn, we look at the door, we fly to the door, and then zoom right in on our robot. So that's great. Now, let's continue on. We see the robot. We're going to sit here and kind of stare at the robot long enough for him to get his little throat slit action in place. It doesn't even really need to complete. We just need to see most of it. Now, on the far end of things, when you're doing this kind of thing on your own, you might not know exactly how long that motion is going to take, especially if you're using animations that you did not create. In cases like that, you may need to go check out those animations, see how long they're actually going to take. You might want to take a moment and actually set up the animation for the robot, or just kind of guesstimate it, because you can always adjust it later. Now, I already know about the amount of time that we're going to need. So what we're going to do is slide up to about 5.3 seconds. And let me get us just a little bit closer than that. There we go. And press enter. So here we are at 5.3. And we're just going to stare at the robot for this long. So I need to put a key on movement and FOV angle just to kind of hold us there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is pull back. We're going to zoom back so that we're back in the doorway. So let me move the time slider forward. We're going to bring it up to 5.65. And we're going to drop a key on FOV angle. and I want to pull the angle back to 90. Now, this is kind of a trick that you can use or not use. It's entirely up to you. If you don't want to drop a key and actually place it, let me go ahead and just delete this. We could grab a keyframe where the field of view was already at 90 degrees, and then go to Edit and choose Duplicate Selected Keys. Hold down Control and drag this over to 5.65. And what that's going to do is zoom us out because it's using that same data. You can use that if you like. It's just one of those things I thought I'd pass your way. Now, what I'd like to do here is actually fly backwards. So it's not like we're turning and flying back to the camera. We're literally going to reverse what the camera has done to get us here. So here at 5.95, actually, excuse me, 5.65, we're going to get back in the doorway. So let's jump back to the movement key where we're just kind of sitting here in the doorway. With that keyframe selected in the movement track, I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Selected Keys, and slide this guy to 5.65. So you see, we just kind of pull back to exactly where we were. Now I want to do this as we kind of pull all the way back to our original position. So we're going to bring an original position key to 5.65. Now, let's go ahead and find one where we're looking back at the switch. Actually, we could probably start here. No, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of confusing myself, but I don't mean to. Let's go ahead and grab key 0, and I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Selected Keys, and we're going to drag this all the way to 6.65. This way, we don't have to guess and try to remember exactly where we had the camera. We already had it where we wanted to, so we can just grab that information and copy it over. So now we pull back, and we're flying right back to where we were. Now, looking at that motion, it may make a little more sense to the player if we at least passed back by the light so they can kind of retrace the path the camera took. So I think I'm actually going to replace that. So let's delete out that key. So yeah, this is one of those things. When you're being a film director, you get to be picky. I'm going to grab our second key where we're looking up here at the light. And you saw me just zoom back a little bit. That's just with the mouse wheel. So we'll zoom back. And I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Selected Keys, and we'll drag this guy up to 5.65. Now let's see how that feels. Pull back. And there we are, kind of looking in the general direction of our light. And now we can wrap things up by looking back down at the switch. So let's go ahead and grab key 0. We'll duplicate that, and I'm going to drag that out to about 745. So that should just rotate us down. So here we are, pulling back, and we look right back where we started. So we're literally playing that rotation animation kind of back the way we came. Now, 5.65, we zoomed back. We can maintain that zoom all the way to 745, all the way until right here. Now I'm going to switch to the FOV angle and press Enter just to hold that value. So the whole time we're panning back across everything, we're staying at this 90-degree field of view. Then I'll go all the way to a full 8 seconds, drop one last field of view key, right-click, set the value, right back down to, I think it was 35 where we started. So we're looking right back at the player just as things began. So now let's play back the whole thing. Stop, hit play. Light comes on. Fly around the corner, look at the robot, pull back, hand it right back off to the player. So we follow the exact same path we took in. Now, when you're animating a camera on your own, you will probably find that you're going to try out a shot and then you'll play back through it and the timing may not feel right, so you're going to tweak times. Generally, this example is fairly simple in that I have the benefit of having all of my values kind of written down and I'm really just going over some notes. You won't have that, so be patient with yourself. Try out different shots. If something's not working, if it's moving too quickly, space your keyframes out a little bit. If motion doesn't feel like it's abrupt enough, then squeeze your keyframes together. Think about placement, think about what's in your shot. But remember that animating your camera is going to be one of those critical things to help you decide what does and does not need to be animated from one moment to the next. Save your level. That's going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.